Avery had spent the whole morning polishing the glass display case, even though the judges for the Springfield Summer Bake-Off wouldn't see it until the weekend. The bell over the bakery door chimed whenever someone came in, and each time she glanced up, a tiny thrill of anticipation ran through her. Not because of the customers. Because of the bakery across the street. Through the front window of Sweet Precision, Avery could see the teal-blue awning of Sugar and Chaos, her least favorite and most distracting sight on the block. The other bakery looked like a Pinterest board exploded. Mismatched chairs on the sidewalk, fairy lights hanging even though it was broad daylight, a chalkboard easel with doodles all over it. And of course her. Riley Quinn, a whirlwind in an apron, currently standing in the doorway of Sugar and Chaos, laughing with a customer, curls pulled into a messy bun, flour dusted across her cheek like a fingerprint from the gods of baking. Avery scowled at the sight. "Stop staring," muttered Marla, her assistant, from behind a tray of croissants. "You're gonna burn holes in the glass." "I'm not staring," Avery said automatically. "I'm assessing the competition." Marla snorted. "Sure. You fix the competition every morning at exactly 8:30 when she flips her sign." As if on cue, across the street, Riley flipped her open sign with a flourish and a little dance step. Avery's jaw tightened. "I'm not dancing," Avery muttered. "I'm working." "Aha," Marla said. "You entering the bake-off this year, or what? Because rumor has it Riley is." Avery's focus snapped back to the countertop where her clipboard lay, neatly organized. "Of course I'm entering. I've won Best Pastry 3 years in a row. Why would I stop now?" Marla shrugged and slid the croissants into the display. "Because Riley's been on local TV twice this year? Because her hazelnut tarts sell out by noon? Because chaos isn't sustainable," Avery interrupted. "This is a business, not a circus. The judges know quality when they taste it. Precision always wins." But even as she said it, her gaze drifted back to the teal awning. Riley had moved inside, but the memory of her easy smile lingered. Avery turned away decisively and pulled out her recipe binder. The bake-off theme this year was Summer Dreams. Contestants had to present a trio of desserts that told a story. Flavor, presentation, and originality all judged. Avery's concept was meticulous. Lemon lavender tart with a basil shortbread crust. Peach mascarpone millefeuille. White chocolate raspberry entremet with a mirror glaze. Every layer is measured. Every component tested and about Riley. She probably had only vibes. Avery tried not to think about how, last year, one of Riley's vibes had turned into a salt caramel brownie stack that nearly beat her. Nearly. Not quite. The first time Avery ever set foot in Sugar and Chaos, it was by accident. 2 days before the bake-off, the town's main supplier delivered the wrong shipment. Avery opened the boxes expecting her usual high-fat European butter and specialty cream. Instead, she found vegan margarine and oat milk. "This is a joke," she said flatly, staring into the box like it had offended her ancestors. Marla grimaced. "They said they can't get the right stuff until Monday. Something about a broken-down truck." "Monday is after the competition," Avery snapped. Panic sharpened her voice. "I can't test my final batches with this. It'll throw off everything." There were other suppliers, but none within immediate reach. The bake-off was in 48 hours. Special orders had been placed weeks ago. Marla hesitated, then raised her hand toward the window. "You know she does wholesale, right? Maybe she has extra. You could buy some, or borrow and replace after." Avery stiffened. "I am not going over there to beg my rival for butter." "Do you want to lose to your rival because you chose pride over fat content?" Avery opened her mouth, then closed it. The thought of her careful plans collapsing, of Riley taking that blue ribbon from her, made her stomach twist. "Fine," she said through clenched teeth. "Watch the front. And if anyone asks where I am, tell them absolutely anything except the truth." Marla's grin was unhelpfully wide. "Yes, chef." Sugar and Chaos smelled like vanilla, cinnamon, and something citrusy. Wind chimes tinkled as Avery stepped in, and a little bell jingled overhead. Inside, nothing matched. Chairs were different colors, the tables were old reclaimed wood, and a mural of pastel clouds and flying cupcakes covered one wall. Handwritten signs labeled pastry names with doodles of happy faces and little hearts. It was charming. Infuriatingly so. Welcome to Sugar and. Riley came out from behind a stack of mixing bowls, apron smeared with chocolate and what looked like berry puree. She stopped short when she saw who it was. Oh, she said, one eyebrow lifting. Springfield's own princess of precision. To what do I owe the honor? Avery fought the urge to smooth imaginary wrinkles from her dress shirt. It's Avery, not princess. Pretty sure you correct my customers when they say, Riley from across the street, instead of Miss Quinn, Riley teased. So I feel entitled to a title for you. A laugh bubbled up from the couple at the window table. Avery's cheeks warmed. I'm here on business, she said briskly. There was a delivery mix-up. My butter order is delayed, and I need enough for a few test batches. I was told you might have some. Riley leaned on the counter, amusement flickering in her eyes. So you're here to borrow butter from your rival 2 days before a contest where we're both competing. Avery held her ground. I'll pay full price and replace it when my order arrives. Riley studied her for a moment, then shrugged. Relax. I'm not a cartoon villain. If I have extra, you can have some. She ducked into the back. As Avery waited, she glanced around. On a chalkboard, Summer Dream Experiments was written in looping letters, with a list of half-developed ideas underneath: key lime cloud cake, strawberry basil crumble bars, coconut citrus dream puffs. There were scribbles, crossed-out flavors, little doodles of suns and waves. Riley came back with 2 blocks of butter tucked against her side. Her forearms were dusted in flour, her hair falling out of the bun. She looked like a painting Avery would never admit she wanted to stare at longer. Here, Riley said, placing the butter on the counter. Consider it an investment in making sure this weekend is actually interesting. Avery blinked. I said I'll pay. I didn't say it was free, Riley said. You can owe me a favor. Avery's stomach dropped. A favor. Riley's mouth twisted into a smirk that, annoyingly, looked less devious and more playful. Relax. Precision. I'm not going to ask you to, sabotage your own pastry. If I think of something, I'll let you know. Avery hesitated, then nodded. Fine. But I insist on paying as well. Riley rolled her eyes and rang up a half-price charge anyway. As Avery signed, their fingers brushed briefly when Riley slid the receipt toward her. Static zipped up Avery's arm. She pulled back quickly. Thank you, she said, more stiffly than she meant to. Riley smiled, softer this time. Good luck with your summer dreams, Avery. You too, Avery said before she could stop herself. The day of the bake-off dawned hot and bright, sunlight glinting off the town square's white tents. Vendors sold lemonade and hand-painted ceramics. Kids ran around with balloons. At the center, a long judging table was decorated with flowers and bunting. Backstage, under a catering tent, competitors worked at assigned stations. Avery's station was a study in order. Tools lined up, mixtures pre-measured, timers set. The judges would taste 3 desserts from each baker. Presentation was a part of the scoring, but so was story. Across the tent, Riley's station looked like someone had dropped a bakery and a rainbow into a blender. Bowls everywhere, notes on sticky pads, a radio playing softly. Avery tried to ignore it. She focused on her lemon lavender tart, carefully arranging thin slices of candied lemon on top. The tart shells had baked perfectly. The mille-feuille layers were crisp. The entremet gleamed like a small polished moon in the fridge. Marla appeared at her side, checking temperatures and peeking over Avery's shoulder. Everything looks good, she said. You're right on schedule. That's because we follow schedules, Avery replied, glancing meaningfully toward Riley's station. Riley, currently piping cream onto something that looked suspiciously like a pie but taller, was humming along to the music. Frosting dotted her nose. She looked like she was having fun. Avery checked her timer. I'm going to make 1 more entremet, just in case something happens while plating. Marla nodded and went to grab another ring mold. The next hour passed in a blur of mixing, baking, chilling, and checking. Avery's mind narrowed to measurements and textures, the hum of the ovens, the quiet chatter of fellow competitors. Sweat dampened her hairline, but everything was under control. Until it wasn't. A stray elbow, someone hurrying past with a tray, caught the edge of Avery's cooling rack. Time slowed as the tray tilted. The backup entremet slid. No! The delicate cake toppled onto the concrete floor with a sickening, soft splat. The decorative white chocolate shards scattered like broken glass. The mirror glaze smeared. Avery froze. Her heart slammed against her ribs. Behind her, someone gasped. Marla swore under her breath. It's okay, Marla said quickly. We still have the first one in the fridge. Avery's throat felt tight. It was a backup, she said faintly. But what if something happens to the first? What if? Hey! Riley's voice cut in gently. Avery spun around. Riley stood a few feet away, holding a piping bag in one hand, brows knitted slightly in concern. You okay? Riley asked. Avery swallowed. I'm fine. Accidents happen. Riley's gaze flicked to the ruined entremet, then to Avery's face. You don't look fine. I don't need your assessment, Avery said, more sharply than intended. I have enough to manage. Riley held up her free hand. Hey! I'm not here to gloat. Stuff like this happens to me weekly. You should see my first attempt at a croquembouche. It looked like a collapsing Christmas tree. Avery didn't answer. Her mind was already racing through contingency plans, but each one fell short. There wasn't enough time to fully redo that particular dessert, not with the required cooling and glazing. Riley hesitated, then said quietly, What are you making? Avery's professional pride warred briefly with her common sense. White chocolate raspberry entremet, she said finally. Multiple layers. Complex. Time-consuming. Riley nodded slowly. I have a blast chiller at my shop. Portable. Took it from a catering gig. I brought it in the van in case my freezer space wasn't enough. Avery blinked. You what? If you want, Riley said, I can help you redo it tonight. After the public part of the competition closes. The judges only do their final tasting tomorrow at noon, right? We have time to produce one more perfect entremet if we prep tonight and chill it in the blast freezer. Avery stared at her. Why would you help me? You're my competition. Riley looked at her like it was obvious. Because nobody wants to win because someone else's tray tipped over. That's not a satisfying victory. If I'm going to lose to you, I want it to be because your dessert was actually better. Not because the floor got an extra snack. Avery opened her mouth, then closed it. What if you win? She asked quietly. Riley smiled. A little crooked. Then you'll know it was fair. And so will I. Marla looked between them, eyes wide. Are you seriously offering to help her? Riley shrugged. I don't like seeing anyone look like they're about to throw up over a cake. Besides, this is a community event. Let's be a community. The words lodged in Avery's chest. Think about it, Riley said, backing away. I'll be here until close. Then I'm heading back to the shop. If you show up, great. If not, I'll assume you decided to risk it. She turned and walked back to her station, humming along to her radio again as if nothing monumental had just happened. Avery stared after her, stunned. Are you going? Marla whispered later, as they boxed up the day's completed components to store overnight. I don't know, Avery said truthfully. Accepting help from her. It feels like cheating. Cheating how? Marla asked. She's offering equipment and maybe a second pair of hands, not a secret sabotage plan. Judges won't care who washed which bowl. They'll care about the taste. Avery thought of the entremet's delicate layers, the hours spent perfecting it. She thought of the whispers she'd already overheard, how Riley was more relatable, how her chaos made people feel comfortable, how Avery's precision sometimes read as cold. She also thought of Riley's face when she'd looked at the ruined entremet. No satisfaction. Just empathy. I'll lock up, Marla said gently. If you want to walk, just to clear your head, and accidentally end up at sugar and chaos. I won't say anything. Avery's lips twitched despite herself. You're infuriating. Yup, Marla said cheerfully. And right. Sugar and chaos glowed from within like a lantern against the dusk. The front lights were dimmer than usual, but Avery could see movement inside. Shadows stretching across the warm wood floor. She hesitated outside, heart hammering, then pushed the door open. The bell chimed. Riley, standing behind the counter with her hair loose for once, looked up. A smear of strawberry filling streaked her wrist. Her face brightened. You are here. Avery shut the door carefully. I'm not here for moral support. Of course not, Riley said, mouth curving. You're here for my highly technical, very serious blast chiller. Avery tried not to stare at her hair, curls falling around her shoulders in a way that made her look softer and somehow more dangerous. And your extra workspace, Avery admitted. Riley gestured grandly. My kitchen is your kitchen. For tonight, anyway. Avery followed her into the back. If the front of Sugar and Chaos was charming, the kitchen was controlled chaos. Open shelves, labeled but not arranged the way any culinary school textbook would recommend. Yet everything had clearly been used, loved, and cleaned repeatedly. There was a big silver box in the corner humming quietly. The chiller, Riley said, patting it affectionately. Lifesaver when you experiment as much as I do. So, tell me about this entremet we're rescuing. Avery set down her ingredient bag, suddenly self-conscious. It's layered. Almond sponge, raspberry jelly, white chocolate mousse, lemon curd insert, mirror glaze. Riley whistled softly. You don't do things halfway. That's the point, Avery said. It should look simple from the outside, but each bite reveals more. Riley nodded, something like respect flickering through her expression. Okay then. Let's make some magic. They fell into a rhythm faster than Avery expected. Riley was less precise with her measurements, but she moved quickly, instincts honed by countless experiments. Avery corrected amounts gently, and Riley didn't complain, just adjusted. You know, Riley said as she whisked egg yolks, you're not as scary as you look from across the street. Avery arched a brow. You think I look scary? Riley grinned. Intimidating, maybe. Always so put together. People say you never have a hair out of place. That sounds made up, Avery said. Riley jerked her chin toward the shiny metal surface of the fridge. See for yourself. Avery caught her reflection and winced. A few strands had escaped her bun, and there was a faint dusting of powdered sugar on her cheek. Disaster, she deadpanned. Riley laughed, warm and surprised. There it is. You do have a sense of humor. I laugh, Avery said. Just not at your funny chalkboard signs. Hey, my pun game is elite, Riley protested. Customers come in just to see what terrible joke I've written. They come in because your brownies are good, Avery said, before she could stop herself. Riley paused. You think my brownies are good? Avery focused on folding whipped cream into the mousse. They're structurally sound. Flavor balance is solid. That is the most emotionally repressed compliment I've ever received, Riley said lightly. I'll treasure it. Avery's lips twitched. As they worked, the conversation deepened in small increments. Riley asked how Avery learned to bake. My grandmother, Avery said. She ran a tiny bakery in Vermont. No nonsense, no shortcuts. She taught me that food is a promise. If you do it right, people trust you. Riley's expression softened. That's sweet. Don't say that, Avery said. We're already surrounded by sugar. Riley nudged her shoulder. Fine. It's meaningful. What about you? Avery asked. You don't strike me as the culinary school type. Riley snorted. Definitely not. I learned online, watching videos at 2 in the morning. I burned so many pans my mom threatened to padlock the oven. I just like figuring out what makes people's eyes light up. The first time someone bit into a cupcake I made and smiled like the world was a little less awful. I loved it. Avery glanced at her. You care about that? Doesn't everyone? Riley asked. We're not just feeding stomachs. We're feeding days. Birthdays, bad days, breakup days, celebration days. It's all connected. Avery considered that silently. They layered the entremet in its ring mold, working in tandem. Riley smoothed the raspberry jelly. Avery leveled the mousse. They slid the mold into the blast chiller together, shoulders brushing. The contact was light, but it sent a ripple through Avery. Riley's hand lingered near hers. You know, she said quietly, you didn't have to accept my help. I wouldn't have thought less of you if you stuck with just one cake. I didn't do it for you, Avery said, then winced. I mean, I did it for the dessert. For the competition's integrity. Riley smiled, slow and amused. Right. For integrity. Her voice softened. Still, I'm glad you're here. Avery's throat felt oddly tight. You're a surprisingly decent collaborator for an agent of chaos. High praise, Riley said, laughing softly. They waited while the chiller did its work, cleaning up the counters together. Riley turned up the radio slightly, and a mellow song drifted through the warm kitchen. Do you ever think about not competing? Riley asked suddenly. Just enjoying what you do? Avery blinked. Baking. Yeah, Riley said. I mean, you're obviously good. Awards or not. Do you ever bake something just because you feel like it, not because it's the best use of your time? Avery thought back to the last quiet morning she'd set aside to experiment with new flavor combinations. No deadlines. It had been months. Not lately, she admitted. Maybe you should, Riley said. You look like your brain is a constantly ticking timer. Might be nice to turn it off sometimes. Some of us don't function well in chaos, Avery said. Riley shrugged. Chaos is just a pattern you haven't made friends with yet. Avery snorted. That's such a you thing to say. And yet you're still here, Riley replied, meeting her eyes. Avery's pulse stumbled. She looked away first. By the time the entremet was ready to glaze, it was nearly midnight. The streets outside were quiet, lit by street lamps and the flicker of a nearby neon sign. Sugar and chaos felt like its own little world. Time suspended somewhere between exhaustion and possibility. Avery poured the white chocolate mirror glaze in a smooth, glossy sheet over the chilled cake, watching it cascade down the sides. Riley whistled softly. That's beautiful, she said. You're like a surgeon. Please don't compare my desserts to internal organs, Avery said. Riley laughed, studying the reflected light on the glaze. When the judges cut into that tomorrow, they're going to lose their minds. Assuming the table doesn't spontaneously collapse, Avery muttered. Riley smiled lightly. Hey, no doom talk. You did the work. Now trust it. The words were simple, but something in the way she said them made Avery smile. Thank you, Avery said quietly. Riley looked at her. You're welcome. They boxed the entremet carefully. When Avery reached for the lid, her hand brushed Riley's again. Neither of them moved this time. Avery's breath caught. For a heartbeat, the air between them vibrated with something new. Something fragile and bright and terrifying. Then Riley stepped back, giving a small, almost shy smile. You should get some rest. Big day tomorrow. Avery nodded, fingers curling slightly at her sides. Right. Big day. As she left, she glanced back once. Riley stood in the doorway of Sugar and Chaos, arms folded loosely, watching her go with an expression Avery couldn't quite read. Warm. Proud. Maybe hopeful. The final judging day felt different. Avery still lined up her tools. She still checked temperatures twice. But there was a quiet undercurrent in her that hadn't been there before, like a string pulled in a new direction. As each contestant presented their trio, the crowd murmured, snapped photos, applauded. Riley went before Avery. Her desserts were whimsical, a sunrise tart with layers of citrus curd, a beach bonfire brownie stack with toasted marshmallow topping, and a summer night cloud cake that looked like a slice of twilight, deep blue sponge with edible stars. Her story tied them together as moments of summer you want to keep forever. The judges smiled. They took big bites, laughed at her jokes, and scribbled notes. The crowd visibly loved her. Avery's stomach turned as she watched. Pride and something like fear wrestled in her chest. Then it was her turn. She stepped forward, lifting the cloche slowly to reveal her trio. The lemon lavender tart garnished with tiny edible flowers, the precise millefeuille layered like a quiet summer afternoon, and the gleaming entremet, perfect, whole, catching the sunlight. She spoke of summer dreams, not as loud adventures but as the small perfect moments that stick in memory. Lemonade on a porch. Peach juice on wrists. Raspberries picked fresh in the late afternoon. She did not mention the midnight rescue mission. She did not mention the person that had offered to help. But she felt her eyes on her smiling proudly. The judges cut into the entremet. The knife slid through neatly, revealing the distinct layers inside. One of them exhaled in visible surprise. A story in slices, another murmured. Applause rose around her. Avery allowed herself a small smile. When she looked up, across the crowd, she found Riley. Riley grinned at her, eyes bright. She raised an invisible glass in salute. Something in Avery's chest eased. In the end, the judges took longer than usual to deliberate. People lounged on quilts, finished their lemonade, and speculated. "Whatever happens," Marla said quietly, "you did your absolute best. And you did it without turning into a monster." "Thank you," Avery said dryly. "Look at you," Marla added, nodding toward Riley. "You and Miss Chaos stayed in the same tent for hours and nobody spontaneously combusted." Avery followed her gaze. Riley stood with a cluster of volunteers, gesturing broadly as she told a story that had them laughing. When she caught Avery's eye, she made a little mocking bow. Avery rolled her eyes, but a smile spread through her lips. Mayor Thompson finally stepped onto the stage with a microphone. "Thank you all for your patience. This year's Springfield Summer Bake-Off had an incredible lineup. Truly, our judges had a very difficult time deciding." A hush fell. In third place. Names were called. Applause rolled. Avery's heart pounded against her ribs. Riley shifted her weight from foot to foot, fidgeting with the edge of her apron. "And now," the mayor said, "our second-place winner this year, with a creative, heartfelt trio that captured the joy of summer in every bite." Avery held her breath. Riley Quinn of Sugar and Chaos. The crowd exploded in cheers. Riley's eyes widened, then softened. She stepped forward, accepting her ribbon with a grin and a little bow. Avery's chest tightened. Second place. That meant. "And finally," Mayor Thompson continued, "our first-place winner, for extraordinary technical skill, perfect execution, and a beautifully layered story that truly embodied summer dreams." There was a beat of silence. Avery could hear the wind in the bunting. Avery hot of sweet precision. The sound blurred around her as the crowd roared. Marla hooped. Someone behind Avery yelled, "Knew it!" Avery stepped onto the stage in a daze, accepting the blue ribbon and the modest trophy. The judges shook her hand, each one offering a few quiet words of praise. "You've outdone yourself this year," one said. "You found the heart behind your technique," another remarked. Avery didn't know what to say to that, so she just nodded. When she stepped off the stage, Riley was waiting, her own red ribbon pinned proudly to her apron. "Congratulations, Princess of Precision," Riley said, eyes dancing. "You earned it." "You did too," Avery said. "Your cloud cake was unexpectedly moving." "Ah," Riley said. "You're going to make me cry in front of all these people." "Please don't," Avery replied. "Your mascara will run into the frosting." Riley laughed, that bright, unrestrained sound that Avery was starting to crave. "For the record," Avery added, voice softer, "I wouldn't have pulled off the entremet without you." Riley's smile gentled. "For the record, you absolutely would have. Might have just lost a few hours of sleep and half your sanity." "Still," Avery said, "thank you for helping your rival." Riley considered her for a moment, then tipped her head. "Does it still feel like we're rivals?" Avery thought of late night whisking the flour, shared stories, small accidental touches. Of how, when the judges had announced her name, the person she'd most wanted to look at had been Riley. "Not exactly," she admitted. Riley took a small step closer. The noise of the crowd faded around them, leaving just the two of them in the space between words. "In that case," Riley said quietly, "I think I'm calling in my favor." Avery's pulse jumped. "You remembered that?" "Of course I did," Riley said. "I let you pay half price for the butter, but I never forgot about my favor." "What do you want?" Avery asked. Riley's gaze held hers, steady and warm. "I want you to promise that, at least once a week, you'll bake something that you like from your bottom of the heart with no stopwatch. Just because it sounds fun. And," she hesitated, then added, "I want to be there when you do. If you want me to be there when you bake." Avery blinked, then laughed softly. "That's it? That's your big favor?" Riley shrugged one shoulder. "For now. If it goes well, maybe next time I'll ask for something even more outrageous. Like coffee. Or dinner. Or, a date." A smile rushed to Avery's face. She glanced down at their hands. "Are you asking me out?" she said, voice barely above a murmur. Riley smiled, shy and bold at the same time. I'm asking if you'd like to spend more time with me. In the kitchen baking delicious desserts. And possibly outside eating delicious desserts too. Avery thought about her tidy bakery, her carefully structured life, and the safe predictability of routines. Then she thought about midnight laughter, shared batter bowls, the way Riley's eyes sparkled when talking about joy. Okay, Avery said. I'll try your method. Once a week. Riley's eyes lit up. And, Avery added, heart pounding, I could pencil in coffee. Or dinner. Or whatever comes after collapsing cakes and blast chillers. Riley's grin was blinding. Look at you embracing chaos. Controlled chaos. Avery corrected automatically. Riley reached out, fingers brushing Avery's. This time, Avery didn't pull away. Their hands fit together like something discovered rather than invented. Deal? Riley asked. Avery squeezed gently. Deal. They stood there for a moment, fingers intertwined, the noise of the festival swirling around them like distant applause. The rivalry that had once defined their days felt suddenly small, a prologue to a story neither of them had known they were writing. The contest would be remembered as the year a perfect entree met won the blue ribbon. But for Avery and Riley, it would always be the year a tipped tray, a midnight kitchen, and a shared dream turned two rivals into something softer, kinder, and infinitely sweeter.